Good morning. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it may be, wherever you may be. Today's Friday. It's the end of the recognized work week for many of us, school week. So, as we come here today, let's think about endings. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about what an ending is, what an ending means, and how the thought or the notion of something coming to an end affects me. Because in many ways, when we are asked that, what do you think of, or what do you feel when you hear the end? And immediately we're going to have our stories, right? We're going to have our attachments. We're going to have what it means to us in that moment. And for me, oftentimes the initial reaction is sadness. You know, I don't want things to end. You don't want something to end. You don't want someone to die. You don't want a relationship to end. You don't want your job to end. You don't want whatever it may be. There's so much that we don't want to end. And then there's all the things we wish would end, right? So when you hear about the end of war, it's a cause for celebration. When you hear about the end of suffering, it's joyful. When someone talks about a battle with an illness and they say, well, that came to an end, you say, oh, this is good, right? This is good. Yeah, good things. So the end itself is not something that we can ascribe a necessary good or evil to. But one thing we can recognize is that it's necessary. It's always necessary. And George Harrison, with his amazing first album after the end of the Beatles, was all things must end. All things must pass. All things must pass. And I think about that when I think about the times that I get stuck in what I see as a problem. When I get stuck in something that seems so vital and so important in that moment. And I get riled up and I get emotional and I get defensive and I become attacking and I start doing this way of being that is pretending that whatever it is that I'm so frustrated with will never end. So then I go to what that is. And on the same token, the other side of that anxiety, it's the same anxiety, but the other side of it is when I'm so in love with something or someone, and the mere thought of it ending is paralyzing. I'm just going to throw this phone. The phone's making a lot of noises. Um, so I think about the feelings that are invoked in me when I think about all of that. Either something ending that I don't want to end or wishing something would end that I do. And behind all of that is the closest I can come is fear. And there's fear behind all of that. And that's the attachment. The attachment has a name, and that name is fear. But even fear has 1,000 names, right? And there's the clever way that our fear masks itself as love, or our fear masks itself as protection, and our fear masks itself as safety. So many ways that our fear can be pretending that it's not fear, so that we will accept it. And when it's brought to us as this is your fear, when the awareness comes, this is your fear, it becomes nearly impossible to accept. And you become defensive. No, it's not. I'm not afraid. And so then I think about what is the solution then? What is the fear that I don't want here? What is the solution when someone is there, when something is there that you don't want to be there? You could ask it to leave, but what if it doesn't? What if it can't? What if asking your fear to leave is akin to cutting off a healthy arm? Hmm. Imagine what your life would be like if you never had fear. If you never experience fear. Some thinks right away that sounds liberating. That sounds amazing. I'd love to live without fear. But I hope that you'd never meet a rattlesnake. Because there's a function of fear. And that function, just like any other function of emotion or energy generation, that function is awareness. Our fear is there to make us aware. That's all. And when we let this check engine light of our life, this fear comes on and says, hey, be aware. Look at this thing. Be aware. When we let that light be our guiding light, that's when we begin to collapse under the weight of what is not yet. And we're living in a delusion. That's when the thing that's there as an expression of the body takes over the body, and we enter the fear body. So, today, while thinking about endings this morning, I thought, how can I go into a meditation where my intention is to meditate on the end of the meditation? How can I create for myself a situation where I know there's an end coming and I prepare for it and I accept it? Especially when it comes to something like meditation, which we have been training ourselves to not be goal-oriented, to be in the here and the now. So the solution then is to not anticipate the end, but to accept the end when it arrives. That's it. We don't have to wait around for it. It's going to happen. We don't have to make it hurry up. It's already coming. You know? Isn't that right? So I devised a thought. I worked on a thought for a while this morning. Laying in my bed early this morning. I woke up quite early. And it was like 3:30 in the morning, and I couldn't get back to sleep for a number of hours. Of course, until about 15 minutes before my planned time to awaken. Then I fell back asleep. I should have just stayed awake, gotten up. But in that time, I had plenty of time to contemplate this, because everywhere we look in every moment, things are ending. Things are beginning. Things are ending. And so if things are always ending and always beginning, and there's not really a clear line between the two, you know, the end of the body is the beginning of the feast for thousands of creatures, microorganisms, bacteria, birds of prey, worms. Time is the one eating us all, right? So then there's an unbroken line there. But we don't have eyes to see or ears to hear the in-between parts so well. So we think there's an ending and a beginning. And that's okay. That's okay. It's going to help us today, that ending and beginning, because what I came up with was a sound meditation using the singing bowl right here. And for today's meditation, we'll take a few breaths first. But then what I'm proposing is that I'm going to sound the bell of the singing bowl. And in the time that the singing bowl is ringing, we focus every bit of our attention onto the sound of the singing bowl, as if that is our entire identity. That's our entire existence. And then as that singing bowl sound comes to an end, it will slowly fade away, and we'll have time to process that ending. And that'll be the end of that session. And we'll do 3 or 4 sessions. Think of it like going to the gym, and you sit down on the machine and you do 4 sets of 15 reps. So we're going to do a few sets of meditation today, meditating on the end, on the fear that's behind the end, and on how to become friends with that fear, because it's here. You wouldn't cut off a healthy arm, but if that arm were unhealthy, you'd tend to it. You'd be friendly to it. You wouldn't take a broken arm and punch it and kick it and hit it. Well, good luck kicking your arm, but you understand. You'd become friends with that arm. You'd nurse it. You'd care for it. So let's care for our fear. Let's care for our fear by sitting with the end in a way that we know we're safe and we know what the end is going to look like. And that's going to help us to work on that muscle, that place of being. So we find ourselves in our meditation posture. Move our bodies into position. If you need to stretch and tighten your muscles, whatever you need to do to find comfort and ease within the balance of your meditation posture. If you're sitting on a rug or a cushion on the floor, with your legs crossed, or sitting on your knees in hero position, or whether you're laying on a bed or a couch or the floor in Shavasana, or like me, you're sitting in a chair. Put your feet flat on the ground if you're in a chair or a couch. And try to elongate that spine, stretch it out just a touch. Straighten the spine, pull the shoulder blades back together, and then let them relax. Opening that front muscle and opening the heart. You can have your hands lightly laying in your lap, on your knees, or crossed over one another in front of your belly, or in mudras, whatever you'd like to do. The focus right now is on finding comfort, ease, and balance. And breathe. For this particular practice, I'm going to close my eyes. If you're not comfortable with that, that's okay. Keep a soft gaze a few feet in front of you. Breathe in and out of the nose if you can. A few natural breaths. Notice as you reach your meditation posture and you close your eyes or soften your gaze, close your mouth and begin to breathe at the nose. Notice how it doesn't take long for your breathing to shift into a calm, longer breath, even if it's very subtle. Everything we're doing right now with our physical body and our intentional breath, our focus on paying attention to our breathing, all of that is generating health and calm in the body right now. We're going to do 3 rounds of a staggered breath with a 4 count inhale and a 6 count exhale. We're not going to be having retention of breath or abstention from breath in between. It's a steady rhythmic breath. Exhale and then begin. And out. And in. And out. And in. And out. And in. And out. Last one. And return natural breath. Focus on the sound of the bell. we'll begin a few minutes of silent meditation. Okay. If your eyes are closed, you can open them. So I don't know what your experience was of that. But I can share mine. Is that the beginning of the bell meditation was novel, and it made it unlike, partially because I'm ringing the bell, right? So I'm focused on performing an action, and I have to be aware of what I'm doing, where my hands are, and all of that. So it took me 3 or 4 rings of the bell to be able to relax into trusting what was happening. Apologize. I'm trying to find matches because my tea is getting cold, and I was going to put on my tea warmer here. There we are. But then, after 3 or 4 bell rings, I began to come into a flow of sorts in my mental space with the ringing of the bell, where at first the length of the bell seemed insignificant, and I was kind of anticipating the end of the ring. But then 3 or 4 bells in, I started to realize that I was beginning to be with the ring of the bell more, where that became the focus. And a few more bells in, and I was totally entranced in the sound of the ring, the rising and lowering of the sound. And it was similar to doing ujjayi breath, right? Ocean breath. There was a rhythmic pattern, and I could feel like myself entrancing in. So then leading that into the silent meditation, I was already there and back, there and back. So I had this flow going. And then when we got into the silent meditation, I was able to go right into it. And I think we were only in silent meditation for about 5 minutes. But if your experience was anything like mine, it was a very, very deep, very quickly deep meditation. Now, if your experience wasn't that, that's not that you didn't do it right, or that's not that you're wrong in some way. We just had we had different experiences, and that's okay. But in sharing my experience with it, I'm my thoughts on it are, well, they're not even there yet. I'm still kind of in that headspace. But it shows me that in just being able to train our minds in just the few ringings of a bell, following the sound, that we are able to go into a deeper place easier. And that's what these practices are offering. And where sometimes when I could sit for 20 minutes and never really get very deep. I have kind of surface level, and that's okay. That's what I need to do at that moment. But there's these times where 5 minutes feels like an hour. And in doing that, in the ability to be in that depth of space where time becomes malleable, the beginning and the end become far less important, because the space that you are swimming in seems almost infinite. And while there's no permanence, there is an expansion of the temporary. Right? My experience of what is here, what is temporary, becomes more expansive. And when we have relationships, children, parents, lovers, friends, and the anxiety of the end of that relationship, or the end of that person, or the end of this person, this body, becomes unbearable. It creates nervous tension, it creates stress and fear. And that fear feeds the attachment and the clinginess. Then we know, because we've done this practice, that if I slow down into it, the relationship becomes far more expansive than I think it is. When I'm grasping onto not wanting something to end, then I'm holding it into this small space. But when I can open to it, it can grow and envelop me, and then I'm unaware of time. And in the end, it's insignificant. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can check the chats. Oh, we have chats. Good morning, friends. Silas, Trice. Trice says, let's see, I think I can, there we go. This is good. The now lasts a long time. It's forever, right? It's always now. There was that famous Winnie the Pooh drawing where he says, "What time is it?" And Piglet says, "Now." And Pooh says, "Oh, that's my favorite time. Now." Even that word, it's almost like the ringing of a bell. It's got a hard consonant beginning and a soft, wispy ending. Now. 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 Okay. Well, that's going to about do it for me this morning. But I'm so grateful to be able to be here today. I don't have much announcements, other than to say, hey, check out some of the other locations for Journey Home. I started a Twitter account, and this kind of gives me it's another space to do these live stream videos. That Twitter started doing live stream. This is what brought me to Twitter. And then the format of it's almost like sutras, like it's, the format of concise small bits of words. I'm really enjoying that. So check that out. If you're on Twitter, give me a follow. I'll follow you back. And yeah, it's just, one more stop in our social media scrolling where we can fill it with things that we want to generate ourselves towards. Right? We want to generate ourselves towards what our friends are doing, what people we respect are doing, and things that are feeding the parts of us that we want to be fed. The thing about social media is, for a large part of it, we can curate what it is that we're putting into our mind. That can become dangerous because you can get stuck in a loop. So being mindful and aware of how you're affected by the media you take in, that's an important skill. Media literacy and all of that, it does come down to awareness of where you're putting this into your body. So I plan on actually including that in a longer series of workshops that I'm putting together. And that will be a separate event from these morning sessions. And I will keep you updated as to when I develop this workshop. But yeah, I'm excited for the things that I'm doing right now. And I'm excited that you're here as well. So we'll take that excitement into our day. We'll try to temper it into focused awareness so we don't let our passions overrun our ability to be here now. Passion can oftentimes be focused on the end product, on the end goal, and completely and totally miss out on what's right here. So, okay, thank you for joining me on this journey home. I place my hands together in the recognized position of gratitude and prayer. And my gratitude right now is for all of the teachings the end has taught me. And all of the many more that I'll have. Every ending is a lesson, a teacher, and a friend. And my prayer is that may we allow our fear to be our servant and not our master. May we allow our fear to be our servant and not our master. Okay, thank you all. We'll see you tomorrow morning for Sutra Saturday. We'll get right back into the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And yeah, have a great day, y'all.